On August 22, 2015, hikers in Flagstaff, Arizona discovered a shallow grave in the Coconino National Forest. The remains belonged to a missing woman last seen 8 months earlier. At first, the case looked like another tragic disappearance. But buried with her was something investigators had never seen before. A single object that would eventually identify her killer, without a confession, without a witness, and without a single eyewitness placing him at the scene. Her name was Julia Monroe, 31 years old, freelance travel blogger, adventurous, outgoing. She had recently moved to Flagstaff after ending a long relationship in California. Her social media showed smiling photos of hiking trails, red rock sunsets, and handwritten captions about starting over. Julia had a wide network of online followers, but a small in-person circle. She rented a modest apartment near downtown Flagstaff. She worked remotely. She documented her life openly. She also documented something else. In the months before she disappeared, Julia posted several cryptic comments about feeling watched. One post read, "It's strange how sometimes you don't notice someone studying you until you stop smiling." Friends dismissed it as poetic writing. Her last confirmed sighting was December 14, 2014. She left a coffee shop around 6:10 p.m. Surveillance footage showed her walking to her car alone. At 6:42 p.m., her phone pinged near Interstate 40. Then, nothing. Her car was found 2 days later in a grocery store parking lot 20 miles away. No signs of forced entry, no blood, no struggle. The case went cold. Until the hikers found the grave. The burial site was roughly 8 miles off a rarely used Forest Service road. Julia's remains were wrapped in a heavy-duty tarp. But investigators noticed something unusual. Pinned to the inside of the tarp was a small brass compass. It wasn't decorative, it was functional. The compass needle was frozen in place, jammed by dried soil. The forensic team initially believed it had been placed there accidentally. But Julia's family confirmed something important. She never carried a compass. She relied on GPS apps. So why was it there? Investigators dusted the compass. Partial fingerprints were recovered, but they were too smudged for immediate identification. The medical examiner ruled the cause of death as blunt force trauma to the back of the head. No defensive wounds, which suggested she was attacked from behind. Phone records showed Julia had recently exchanged messages with a man named Trevor Hale. Trevor was 35, a freelance photographer. They met online through a hiking forum. Messages between them were friendly. They discussed trails, sunsets, locations. The last message from Julia to Trevor read, "Maybe you can show me that hidden overlook you mentioned." That message was sent the afternoon she disappeared. Trevor told police he never met Julia in person. He said their conversations were casual. But his phone data contradicted him. On December 14th, his phone pinged in the same cell tower zone as Julia's at 6:38 p.m. Then, both devices traveled north toward Interstate 40. Trevor claimed he was driving aimlessly to clear his head. Investigators obtained a search warrant for Trevor's home. Inside his garage, they found camping equipment, ropes, tarps, survival tools. Nothing inherently suspicious. But something small caught an investigator's eye. On a shelf sat a collection of antique compasses. Trevor had a hobby. He restored vintage navigation tools. When shown the compass recovered from Julia's grave, Trevor claimed he had sold dozens similar to it online. But forensic analysis revealed something unique. The compass recovered from the grave had a microscopic scratch pattern on its casing, identical to one visible in photos Trevor had posted months earlier showcasing his restoration work. He hadn't sold that one. He kept it. Investigators confronted him. Trevor maintained innocence. He admitted meeting Julia that evening, but claimed he dropped her off near her car after a brief hike. But soil analysis told a different story. The dirt embedded in the compass matched the burial site exactly, and trace soil found in Trevor's truck bed matched the same composition. Still, Trevor denied killing her. Then came the psychological break. During extended interrogation, detectives introduced a subtle tactic. They placed the compass on the table between them. They didn't accuse, they didn't threaten. They just asked him to explain why it was there. Trevor stared at it longer than necessary. Behavioral analysts later described the moment as a shift. Trevor wasn't angry. He wasn't emotional. He was offended. Offended that something so small could unravel his control. Investigators discovered Trevor had a history of online manipulation. He targeted women who had recently relocated, women who posted publicly about starting over. Julia's blog made her visible, predictable, accessible. He built rapport, gained trust, offered guidance, then isolated. Julia believed she was exploring Arizona. Trevor was mapping her. In his search history, investigators found a saved note written months before Julia's death. It read, "Compass doesn't lie. People do." The irony was brutal. The compass he cherished became the anchor that tied him to the grave. Forensic experts re-examined Julia's fingernails. Beneath them were trace particles of brass, consistent with scraping against the compass casing, which meant, in her final moments, she likely grabbed at the tarp, or him, and dislodged it. Trevor didn't realize he had dropped it. He didn't realize it remained pinned inside the burial wrap. When confronted with the brass trace under Julia's nails, Trevor's composure cracked. Not dramatically, just slightly. He stopped correcting detectives. He stopped insisting on innocence. Instead, he asked a quiet question. Did she suffer? It wasn't a confession, but it was no longer denial. Trevor Hale was charged with first-degree murder. During trial, prosecutors described the compass as the silent witness. They argued that Trevor believed navigation tools gave him control over the wilderness. But he underestimated something. Evidence also navigates. It finds its way home. Trevor was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole. At sentencing, Julia's sister addressed the courtroom. She trusted the wrong guide, but in the end, even the object he used to feel powerful pointed back to him. Sometimes killers think they've buried the truth, but truth doesn't need GPS. It doesn't need directions. It just waits for something small, a scratch, a fingerprint, a forgotten object to point the way. The compass didn't lie, it just needed someone to follow it. If this case made you realize how small details can expose even the most calculated crimes, subscribe to The Hidden Truth. Because sometimes justice doesn't shout, it simply points.